Hello everyone, I'm Grace. In this video, I will introduce what *bpmf* is and its pros and cons, and also how to write *bpmf* and use it. Let's get started. Some of you have asked me what these symbols above the traditional characters were in my other videos. They are the phonetic symbols used in Taiwan. In Chinese, we call it 注音符号, or you can simply say 注音. In English, people often call it *bpmf*. This name comes from the first four symbols of 注音. *bpmf. In China, they use pinyin to spell out the pronunciation of Chinese characters. In Taiwan, we use 注音 *bpmf. So in Taiwanese children's books, you can see there is 注音 along with the test, so children can read how to pronounce them. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of 注音, so you can decide whether you want to learn it or not. Firstly, I think the best part is that it's more straightforward in terms of the sounds that the symbols represent. In pinyin, one letter can represent different sounds. For example, this letter represents the U sound, but when it comes after the initial ji, qi, xi, it's pronounced as yu. But in 注音, when you see U, it's always pronounced as U, and yu always pronounced as yu. Also, in pinyin, there are some reductions in the spelling, like the pinyin of Liu is this. It omits the O letter. Originally, it's like this, but it's shortened into this. However, in 注音 *bpmf*, we don't have these reductions, so you don't have to remember these rules. Another pro is that 注音 is created by simplifying ancient Chinese characters, so these symbols look pretty similar, and some of them are even the same with components of Chinese characters. So learning 注音would have a positive impact on your learning of Chinese characters. The last advantage I want to mention is that, compared to pinyin, which uses Latin alphabet, the symbols of 注音 look rather unfamiliar. So when you're learning it, you can focus on how to properly pronounce each symbol. Now let's move on to the cons of 注音 *bpmf*. Unlike pinyin using Latin-based alphabets, learning 注音will take more time to get used to these new symbols. Another disadvantage of learning 注音 is that this system is only used in Taiwan. Textbooks published outside of Taiwan won't likely include 注音, so they will be difficult to obtain. I'd say if you want to learn traditional characters, 注音 is a good learning tool for you, especially if you have some Taiwanese friends and you want to learn Chinese from them. They can use 注音 to help you. But most Taiwanese people haven't formally learned pinyin, so if you ask them to type pinyin of a character to you, it wouldn't be an easy test. But if you only want to learn simplified characters, then pinyin is the natural choice, since most of the materials in simplified Chinese only include pinyin. Okay, now if you have decided to learn 注音, let's get started. In total, there are 37 symbols. Let's start with learning the 21 initials. B, 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 as in 爸爸, 爸爸, 不, 不, P, 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 as in 跑步, 跑步, 朋友, 朋友, M, 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 as in 妈妈, 妈妈, 买, 买, F, 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 as in 飞机, 飞机, 房子, 房子, D, 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 as in 大家, 大家, 电脑, 电脑, T, 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 as in 他, 他, 天气，天气。呢，as in 你，年，了，as in 练习，来，歌，as in 狗，刚刚，科，as in 可以，看，喝，as in 厚，红色，鸡，as in 今天，见面，七，as in 7点，去，西，as in 现在，学生，知，as in 知道，桌子，吃，as in 吃饭，唱，诗，as in 谁，水果，日，as in 日期，热，资，as in 昨天，字，as in 菜，错，丝，as in 四，公司。Okay, now let's move on to the 16 finals. As in 爸爸，大，o as in 我，坡，as in 可，喝，as in 也，别人，I as in 爱，来，A as in 给 睡睡凹凹凹 as in 老师老师脚脚 o o o as in 狗狗瘦瘦安安安 as in 安全安全班班恩恩恩 as in 很很本来本来昂昂昂 as in 忙忙房子房子嗯 as in 冷冷灯灯儿 as in 儿子儿子而且而且一 as in 意思意思鞋鞋屋屋屋 as in 五五不不鱼鱼鱼 as in 雨雨女女 Remember, 一 u yu, these three sounds can be in the middle of an initial and a final, like this. 贴果群 So they are also called 介音 medials. After learning the 37 symbols, let's check out the different tones. Technically, there are 5 tone marks, but the first tone is usually omitted. This is the mark of the first tone. Normally, you won't see it. When you see a character with the first tone, its 注音 looks like this, without any tone mark. The marks of the second, third, fourth tones are the same as the marks in pinyin. They look like these. In 注音, they are marked on the upper right side of the final symbol. Another tone mark is the neutral tone. It looks like this. It's marked on top of the first symbol, like this. Okay, that's all for today. I hope this helps you with your Chinese learning. By the way, if you want to learn the tongue positions and the mouth shapes of these sounds, check out my pronunciation training videos. I put a playlist here and you can also find the link in my description. Alright then, I hope you learned a lot from today's video. I will see you next time. Bye!